This is the Todd Shapiro Show on Canada Talks, SiriusXM 167.
Okay, my second time talking to this individual today, and like my third or fourth over the last couple days. Great dude from Halo Labs, Kiran Sidhu. Hey, Kiran, how you doing?
I'm doing really well.
Man, that was fun. Earlier today, we were like, let's go on Instagram Live, like kind of utilize that platform and speak about the message. And that's, do you like doing that? Do you like when you do interviews, Kiran, as a CEO of a company, you obviously with being a CEO, you gotta, you play the part a bit, but does any of that ever, because I don't like doing stuff on camera is my point. Do you ever get, do you have any nerves that go through your body during that time?
That one was a little nervy because I was really an Instagram Live virgin there. And so, I was really proud of myself when I clicked the picture of our 6-acre farm in Oregon, and it was in the background and I was in the foreground. And, then we had a couple of people, who had, not such positive things to say. And, someone asked me, I remember that was really funny, said, do you guys use moldy flour? And I said, absolutely, we use moldy flour. And they're like, see, I told you they use moldy flour. But I'm like, wait a minute. We're volatile extractors. We extract with butane, and the butane eliminates the mold, and it keeps all the good stuff. That was like a really funny moment, because to a volatile extractor, moldy flour is great because that way you get flour that can't be used for anything else except to make beautiful oil.
That's amazing. I didn't realize that, and because I saw the comments coming in too, and even that was new for me. I'm not gonna lie. And they're coming in, and then the guy's like, "I got you on record saying you use moldy flour." Well, guess what? Kiran's completely on record saying that, and here's why.
That's right. I mean, because what we always say is a failed grow is an extractor's dream, right? So the other thing is, how everyone tries to grow marijuana, so it's really nice, tight, beautiful buds. Into an extractor, having what we call a larvae bud is much better because if the bud has sort of, expanded out, it's much easier for all the solvents to go through it, right? So for us, we say, hey, for us, a larvae grow, a moldy grow, extractor is mono for us because our processes, are such that, and the solvents we use actually take out all the bad stuff and leave the good.
Here's maybe the most naive question anyone can ever ask, and I apologize in advance for it. But if I just had, say, one traditional kind of homegrown plant of cannabis, marijuana plant, whatever, everyone's seen a picture of just the one. How much how much oil can you extract, say, from that, just visually speaking? Would it fill up, a shot glass? Say, I don't know. I'm really sorry for sounding so naive, but I really am naive to that.
So let's say you're a good greenhouse grower. You put a nice little greenhouse. You put a plant up there, and you're in a good climate. You get 1.5 pounds out of it, right? That's about, let's say, 1 pound. That's 454 grams of usable marijuana. And if you extract it, you'll probably get, probably 8 to 10%. So say 40 grams. So you get probably 40 grams. But the way people extract at home is using a mechanical process. Because if you remember, all of this extraction came from the old bubble hash that you'd find from Morocco and Nepal, where you would take the pollen or the oleoresin and separate it, and then you'd pack it with your hands. But in today's day, what people are using is they're using hair straighteners. So they take some tin foil, put it on each side of the hair straightener, and then take the flour and compress it. And what comes out is called rosin. And what's interesting is I think in Canada you're going to see a lot more rosin, which is considered a gourmet product, than you will see maybe in the U.S. But in the U.S. you see a lot of rosin, and there are these enormous rosin presses, and we've had them too, that look like big, ironing boards where you bring it down and then all the oleoresin comes to the sides and you roll it up into a ball, and there you go.
Okay, so wow, this is wild. So and then how would like a home grow person collect it, that oil? Where do they put that? And then on a much bigger scale, you over at Halo Labs, how then do you collect that rosin?
Well, we don't make rosin.
Okay.
Because it's not effective and it's a niche market, right? So that's not what we do. We don't do mechanical extraction. We do solvent extraction where we can, and in certain jurisdictions where we can't, then we'll do what's known as CO2 extraction, which is like a big pressure cooker, right? So either you use the chemicals of a solvent, right, or you use pressure, like in CO2, or you do old school mechanical, like a hair straightener, or or a mesh. So, I mean, those are the three basic sort of extraction techniques that are used worldwide.
And then if a company calls you up and says, okay, you have all this oil, Halo Labs, I have a product that I want to make, I want you to white label it. How does that process work then? Like, what like literally from A to B, like for instance, I have an idea I want to do, and I think it's something that you already do. You guys have like intimacy lubes. You work with a company, I think you work with a company called XES, right? Or is
right.
that?
Yeah, definitely.
So
that's a CBD based product.
CBD based product. I've always wanted to do a CBD intimacy loop. So how, like, if I called you up and said, how can you guys help me make this? What's the conversation that follows?
Well, the first thing that follows being a businessman is, how much can you commit to? And, is it going to be a viable product, right? That's the first thing.
Sure.
But if it's a viable product, then we have our scientists who we keep out of our lab, per se, where we manufacture, and they would devise a formulation. Valeri leads that group. And then after we devise a, formulation, then we would test it, and we would put it into production, and then it would go through a new product development cycle, and we'd get all the packaging approved by the relevant state, do some testing internally, do some testing externally, and it's just like any other product rollout. In the old days, it used to take us maybe 30 days, but now as we've gotten bigger, it takes us 60 to 90 days to introduce a new product. Unless it's just a change of form factor, if it's 1 gram to half a gram or something like that, then we can do it a lot quicker.
Have you had some really sort of eclectic or unique requests to partner or do or produce for people?
Well, they used to be unique requests, but now, it's standard. I remember in the day, everything was natural cannabis flavors. And then now you're seeing, cannabis flavors like Skittles, but not spelled exactly like Skittles, because that in some states would say it's an inducement to children.
Yeah.
You have lavender and honey, you have chamomile. So you're having a lot of what we call botanically derived terpenes that are food grade, which are 100% natural. They're not an additive or a filler, that are being combined with cannabis. And you're seeing probably at the store level, maybe 40% of all cannabis being sold being these botanically derived terpenes, that will give a certain flavor. You even have terpenes, which are like a palette of flavors that can, make a vape taste like chocolate, if people prefer that, and what have you. So that was something in the beginning we never used to see, but now it's become much more prevalent, where people want, certain specific terpene or flavor profiles in their vape cartridges.
What about Kiran Sidhu, who's joining us, CEO of Halo Labs, and it's halocanada.com, CANNA. In terms of the groups you work with and the industry as a whole, I'm always fascinated by the demographics of it. And, sometimes we think of cannabis as just maybe a younger space, but, are you seeing sort of inquiries by, like even a geriatric crowd over 65? Are you starting to see products go towards that side of things?
Well, something that's interesting is there's a service called BDS, which is sort of the AC Nielsen, or the service that's keeping tabs on dispensaries, and they have a product called Green Edge. And if you look at the average person in a dispensary in California, the age is a lot higher than you would think. It's someone in their 40s. So it's not, you have people like my mom who, as I said, just was recovering from knee surgery, and right beside her is a 50/50 CBD THC tincture. And then you have the younger people who love the dabs and the live resin and the, shatter, who are college people. And in the middle, you have, people who love their gummies. But everyone seems to love everything. But, that's part of the point, that the demographic is right there in the middle at around 45. So it seems that cannabis is definitely something that can be used medicinally, which I don't know alcohol besides on a wound can be used medicinally. And it's attracting all ages, from the highest to the low. The lowest,
yeah. Yeah, I mean, and also with the stigmas ending, or like you're, being based out of the States, are there still, because, it's funny, I hear about sort of stigmas around cannabis and stuff, Kiran, and to be honest, I don't really see it. Like, I can't remember the last time someone came to me and said, oh my God, you touched the devil's lettuce, but is there still some of that attitude in the States?
Well, probably, in Oklahoma and parts of Texas, but I don't even see it in the more conservative parts of Washington State or Oregon State. So a good example is the Rogue River Valley, Jackson County, Oregon, where most of the cannabis is grown. And I was on top of a hill, and, you saw our grow at Evans Creek, and all I could see for miles when we were out there was just cannabis and hemp everywhere. But then at dinner, a former supervisor reminded me that this is the most conservative county, wow, Josephine and Jackson, in the state. I mean, it's 80% Republican, and none of the people, quote unquote, support it, and the politicians don't support it. Yet it's so prevalent there. So you don't really see a backlash, even though people philosophically are, let's say, not aligned with it. And then I went on to ask him, say, isn't it a big revenue source? And he's like, it is a big revenue source, but the county is already very wealthy. So it's not being driven by, it's an interesting sort of conundrum that in such a conservative county, you have such a rampant business that's all you can see as your eyes behold.
It's interesting to me, because I wonder, does the media still kind of make us feel this way? Because I think the media does, where they're so shocked or surprised by new kind of cannabis stories or cannabis studies. And it seems like an approach that you would have seen still 20, 30 years ago. I don't know. Unless you're like in part of the sort of MJ Bizzes or the Leaflies or those MJ Observers, whatever, those are the ones that obviously get what's going on here with the industry. But I feel like maybe the media is not representing how ultimately this thing seems to be quite accepted across the board at this point.
No, I totally agree with you, is that it's much more accepted because, remember, it's medicinal as well. Yeah. But again, I'm biased because where I travel to are places where it is accepted. We're obviously not growing in, Oklahoma or Iowa, but, there are dispensaries coming up in Oklahoma and Iowa, not to, put that down. I think there's CBD only in Iowa and full-blown medical dispensaries in Oklahoma. So, I mean, even Utah now, is allowing dispensaries. So it seems that the will of the people nationally, even in the more conservative spaces, when they go into that private booth and they pull the lever that only they know they pulled, seem to be, favoring it more so than disfavoring it.
And as your company expands, for instance, into Africa, which you're doing, Halo Labs, Halo's their ticker symbol, by the way, if you like stocks. What are attitudes like over, say, in a country like Africa?
In Africa, we're in a country called Lesotho, which is a mountain kingdom with the lowest low and the highest high in the world, as they say. And it's right in the center of, it's a constitutional monarchy that's very stable, right in the center of South Africa. And we were with the deputy prime minister at a cannabis conference in London, and he said that there are three things in Lesotho. There were three sayings he said around cannabis. The first one is that if you see a beautiful woman in Lesotho walking down the street, or a beautiful young girl, you would say she is as beautiful as a cannabis seed. And then when in that society, the men give dowry to the wife-to-be's family, and you can give dowry in cannabis. And then when apartheid ended, their rallying cry was, give us back our land and our cannabis. So in that mountain kingdom, which is similar to the Emerald Triangle in America, where most of the marijuana was grown prior to this legalization, it's high altitude, and it's an area where cannabis has been part of their culture for, as long as they've been around there.
That's an unreal story, to be honest. It sort of gives you chills to think of the history, and again, it's not only just the history of what sadly some nations have had to go through, but also the history of how powerful this plant has always been. Right, and Lesotho, I remember the first company that went there was actually Supreme, which is a great company. I mean, a world-class grower from Canada, and I remember them paying. I think it was 10 million Canadian dollars for a 10% stake in a business plan in Lesotho, and I remember my head sort of spun, and I said, "Wow, that's just incredible." And for us, we have a license that is 5 hectares of greenhouse, and then up to 200 hectares outdoors. And I think we paid 18 million shares, which at today's valuation is probably about, I think, $6 or $7 million for the entire license, and we're putting up our first, we have our nursery up and everything. But my partner Andreas Met and co-founder put it in perspective with me when he said that, Kiran, could you imagine, forget about 200 hectares, if we grew 100 hectares of cannabis and it grew as effectively as it grows in Oregon, that would be like $850 million of cannabis. It would be enough cannabis to supply every adult in the EU 6 grams per year. And it's just staggering the scope of what Africa can do, and how Africa, because a place like Lesotho does not have the stigmas that a China or India has, or another place, or even a Morocco, where it's traditionally been grown but tolerated, what the potential breadbasket Africa can be. And Canopy's there, Afria's there, Supreme's there. It's absolutely, the potential there is just unbelievable, because it's part of their culture. And it's what the people know. They know how to trim. They know how to grow cannabis. And it's, for me, it's a magical place. Sounds very exciting. I joked with you, I think, last week how I wanted to do a live remote one day in Humboldt. You could hook that up. I want to go to Africa now. Forget about that. I want to go to Lesotho. Let's do a remote there. That sounds fun.
Oh, it's a blast. Great spot.
Thank you very much. So, Kiran, this great update. And thank you again for all the education and all the information. Kiran Sidhu at please check out halocanada.com. And again, I always talk about the stock price. I'm not allowed giving financial advice, but a lot of volume today. It looks like listen, do your due diligence, people. But Halo is their ticker symbol, and I can tell you, I think you'll be pleased with what you see there. Kiran, thank you so much for your time, man. We'll catch up next week, okay?
All right. Thanks for having me.
Okay. Cheers, dude. Kiran, what a great guy. Always informative, man, and just sort of starts to give you chills when you hear about nations, what Lesotho and what they've been through, and how experienced they are with a plant that a lot of the world is just becoming familiar with, and we're trying to do our best to educate you. That's what we like to do here on the Shapiro Show.
This is the Todd Shapiro Show on Canada Talks, SiriusXM 167.